Hi, I'm Elizabeth Liang, also known as Lisa, and I am the creator and performer of the solo show Alien Citizen and Earth Odyssey, which has toured the United States as well as four continents. And I'm a published essayist and a blogger, and I lead workshops on creating your solo show or writing your memoir. Now, if you've been yearning to create a solo show or write a memoir, but you haven't been sure how to begin, or you've begun and you've worked on it in fits and starts, but you've come to realize you really need structure and accountability, this is my shortened sample session of one of my workshops so that you can get a sense of what I do. I lead workshops in person in Los Angeles at different venues, but also right here via Skype in my office. So if you were to take a Skype workshop, this is what you would see. And I'm going to lead you through a short sample session. But before I do that, I just want to acknowledge to you that I know personally what it takes to create a solo show or to write something that is autobiographical and revealing. I know how vulnerable it is. I know how bewildering the process can be. I know how much courage it takes and how hard we are on ourselves. And I also know how completely worth it it is. Every one of my participants has told stories that were very surprising, hilarious, harrowing, thought-provoking, heartbreaking, unintentionally educational. They weren't lecturing. I just learned something as I listened to them while they were being quite entertaining. So many people fear, and I include myself when I first embarked on this project, that their stories are simply not going to interest anyone, or at most maybe three people who are just being kind. And that's a hugely common fear, but I'm here to tell you it is not the case. Everyone's story has merit, and this is because whatever the details are of your story, the underlying emotional truths are what resonate for your audience and your readers, and are what bind them to you and keep them watching and keep them reading. So it's worth it. Also, my workshops will get you into or get you back into the habit of writing or creating regularly without dread and even with enthusiasm. Just think, the greatest bonus, if I do my job right as a workshop leader, is that you come to see how your story matters and that only you can tell it, and that you are honoring yourself and the life you are fortunate to be in by telling your story. Now, this is not therapy. I am not a mental health professional, but the process, as with any creative process, can have therapeutic elements. And I will say that creating, producing, and performing Alien Citizen and Earth Odyssey has been the most self-honoring and ultimately, coincidentally, self-healing process and practice that I have ever carried out. So we're about to begin the session, but I just want to let you know most of my workshops last 5 to 6 weeks, and the goals by the end of them are for you to have a scene or a chapter of your show or your memoir that's solid. So you could then take the scene, if you want to storytelling venues, or take it to Toastmaster events, or perhaps even fashion it into a TED Talk. Your chapter you could submit as a personal essay to magazines, journals, anthologies. So these are some possibilities for what you will work on here. It could also just be a straight chapter for your memoir and a straight scene for your solo show. It's up to you. Okay, so now we're going to begin. So I begin every session thusly. Get comfortable in your chair. You comfy? Okay. We're going to do about a 2-minute breathing exercise, which begins with closing your eyes and taking deep, loving breaths. Deep inhales and slow, gentle exhales. And on the next exhale, release the day. And on your next exhale, release all need for perfection. And if you have tension or discomfort in your body in a particular place, breathe into it and release on the exhale. Keep doing that. And if you want to, you can put your hand on the part of your body that has tension or discomfort as you breathe into it and release the tension as much as you can on the exhale. Just a few more breaths. And open your eyes. And now, because you have your pen and paper at hand, write, I want to create this solo show, or I want to write this memoir because, and then complete the sentence. You can write more than one sentence. You have 2 minutes. Wrapping that up. Now, write down every single fear that you can think of that you feel about embarking on this process. Every single fear you can think of. List them. You have 90 seconds. and wrapping it up. And at this point, I would ask in a group workshop who would like to share first. And if no one volunteers, I would call on someone and I would have each person share the answers to both of those prompts, why they want to create this, and what all the fears are that they have. Now, if by any chance you listed fears like no one will care, or people will come to the show and they still won't care, or I will hurt someone by telling this story, or it will be superficial, or it will be like opening a can of worms, or I won't remember all the important details that will help it to be a really good story, or it won't be original, or it will be self-indulgent, or it won't be funny and I really want it to be funny, or it will just suck, it'll just suck, it's just going to be a big bag of suckage. I can assure you that these are hugely common fears. You are not alone. I am convinced that every single person who has created something about themselves, like a solo show or a memoir, has had at least 3 of those fears, if not more. And I'm sure there's many more fears that I haven't listed, but I just want you to rest assured. This is common, this is human, it's part of the process. We're pointing it out now so that we can move forward. And at this point in the group workshop, you'd have heard everyone else's fears because I would be calling on each person. So that would just be comforting. So the next prompt is choose a time in your life to write about. Any time is fine. The first time in your life that pops into your mind is usually perfect. Write down where you were, how old you were, and these 3 lines. What was your greatest need? Which strategies did you take, functional or dysfunctional, to fulfill that need? And what were the obstacles? So, where were you? How old were you? What did you need? What did you do to get it? What were the obstacles? Whether or not you managed to fulfill the need is not important. It's the story that's important. You have 4 minutes. And wrapping it up. Now, normally in a group workshop, I would ask who would like to share first, but since this is not a group workshop, I would merely ask you right now to hold on to what you've written and what you're going to write, because you're now amassing material. This is how it begins. And if you've already got material, this is getting you back into the process, delving into your life and creating story. Now, the next prompt is write about a time in your life when you felt completely disconnected from your surroundings. Whether it was the physical environment or the people around you or what was happening, it's up to you. You felt completely disconnected, not a part of your surroundings. Write about what was happening and the feelings it evoked. You have 4 minutes. And wrapping it up. And wrapping it up. Now write about a time in your life when you felt completely connected to your surroundings, the physical environment, the people, whatever it was happening. You felt absolutely a part of it. And write about what was happening, the feelings it evoked, and you have 3 minutes. And wrapping it up. And here, again, is where I would ask each person to share in the group. Now, the fantastic thing about these group workshops is that the feedback you get from your fellow participants and really just listening to their stories is galvanizing and inspiring and comforting. And as each person reads the response, I then ask them to turn on some kind of recording device. It can be audio, it can be video, it does not matter. It can be old fashioned or new fashioned, it doesn't matter, it just has to work. And I start asking them questions to give me more detail and to understand more of what they're talking about, more context, anything that comes up for me. And that's recorded because the responses you give can sometimes be the heart of the story more than what you wrote. Or you got the heart of the story in writing, but there's more detail that gives it more richness and helps us understand the larger picture. So you're going to want those recordings. You're going to want to transcribe them later. They could become essential parts of your memoir or your solo show. And if they don't, that's okay. It's still more material that you could use for something else. And the reason that I do that is that frequently when people just answer the question out loud, verbally, they open up more. That's where they'll admit to the thing that they either didn't write about or didn't have time to write about, because I do these short timed prompts. There's no room to be precious. You just got to answer the question. Now, only the person who is answering the questions I'm asking about their story gets to record that section of the workshop. What happens in the workshop stays in the workshop. If someone chooses to produce or publish something that came up within the workshop, that's their choice, but no one may record anyone else's work. So after I've asked my questions and given whatever feedback I have, I then ask the participant, you, if you would like feedback from your classmates, and you can say yes or you can say no. It is completely up to you. You can also specify what kind of feedback you want if you're feeling particularly vulnerable and you just want to be kind of pet and told you're a genius or pretty. You can ask for that. That is what we will give you, because this is not a finished work that you have slaved over critique class. This is a creating class. This is part of the creation process. And so the kind of feedback you get is, oh, I wanted to know more about that character, or I didn't understand how that came about, or I wasn't sure how you felt about such and such, so that you're understanding what your audience or readers need more of to fill out the story. So the number one priority is for this workshop to be a safe space for you to create. Now, in this shortened free sample session, I have given you several prompts, but normally after the first session, there would be fewer prompts. There would probably be no more than 2, and frequently only 1, because we start the class with a breathing exercise, we do a prompt, each person shares, gets feedback if they want it, and then people share what they worked on in between sessions. And that could be one of 2 things. Either you asked for an assignment because you didn't know what to do, so I've given you an assignment, or you already know which chapter or scene you want to work on, and so that's what you're going to be bringing in each session, longer, shorter, different sections, etc. And it would normally be 3 to 5 pages of your chapter, or 10 to 15 minutes of your solo show. Oh, my sign fell. See, this is spontaneity. Again, my workshops are generally 5 to 6 weeks long. They last for 2 hours. I have 4 participants maximum per workshop because I want to give maximum attention to each participant. Here are some ways that my workshop is different from others. The Skype one is via Skype, so people from around the world can take the same workshop if they're in a time zone that is somehow compatible. So I've had people on both coasts of the US take the same workshops. I've had people in the US and Central America take the same workshops. I've had people on the west coast of the US and Asia take the same workshops. So that's a great thing, because you get to meet people from different countries or who are living in different countries who have stories to tell. And that's, I think, a bonding thing for our planet. And it's what we need. I lead this workshop because I love story. I love hearing other people's stories. I love helping them to find the heart and the core of their stories and all the wonderful, delicious, juicy details. And also because I am particularly skilled in working with people who grew up among worlds, whatever that means to them. They grew up feeling like a bridge or an island or both at different times in their lives. And that can be anyone who lived an intercultural life, someone who moved several times internationally, someone who has parents from different cultures, someone who grew up at least bilingual, but also people who we don't immediately think of as intercultural, like children of divorce who had to grow up in 2 different households, or people who grew up in the foster care system. But all are welcome. These sessions and the prompts work for anyone who has a story to tell. Now, the great thing about my Skype workshops is that you can do them at home. You don't have to get into a car and buy gasoline or a ticket to the public transportation system. You're just at home. You could sit there in your pajamas and we'll never know, because we're just going to see this pretty much. I will be fully dressed as an adult because I'm leading these workshops and therefore must have dignity. More special stuff you get from my workshops, whether you take them via Skype or in person. I email you links to fantastic TED Talks and articles on the creative process and podcasts about writing, etc., that I have found hugely helpful and that I've been told my participants have also found hugely helpful and either galvanizing or inspiring or comforting. And I also give a handout. I'll either email it to you if we are working via Skype, or I will give it to you in person. It has tips, recommended reading, and more. So if after taking this shortened free sample session it feels like a good fit for you, please go to elizabethliang.com and you will see when my next workshops are happening. You can also email me at eliang@wesleyan.edu, and we'll hopefully work together soon. I also work with people one-on-one. If you won't be able to take a group workshop, we can talk about that. And I also assess scripts and memoir manuscripts for which you already have either a rough draft or you have a goodly chunk. Thank you so much for joining me in this introduction to my workshop, and I hope to speak with you soon.